Today I'm doing a short heritage walk from Bird-Owl Lane in Cheadle Heath to Chestergate in Stockport. Bird-Owl Lane gets its name from Bird Hall, which once stood around here. This would have been old farmland at one point, but as you can see now it's a large industrial estate. The buildings on my left are the former offices of Frantic Computer Systems Cheadle Heath division, and in 1983 I started my first job here as a computer programmer. I'm walking north down Bird-Owl Lane towards Morrison's supermarket. As I approach Morrison's, I'm going to turn left and head towards Cheadle Heath. Behind Morrison's petrol station is the former site of Cheadle Heath railway station, which opened in 1906 but closed in 1967. A single track does remain, but this is now used for freight only. From the old railway station you could once catch trains to North Wales, Southport, London and other destinations. As I head to Stockport Road, you'll see a pub that is now closed on the right, and this was the Farmer's Arms, and there's been a pub here for over 170 years, but alas, no more. Across from the Farmer's Arms, on the opposite corner, was a toll booth, and this was for the Stockport to Warrington Turnpike Road. The toll booth was demolished in 1885, and a few years later the whole turnpike system was itself abolished. A little way past the Farmer's Arms is the site of the former Smith's Crisp factory, which has now been demolished, and there are some retail units here. It's hard to imagine that once all this area would have been farmland, and on my left would have been Walnut Tree Farm, shown on a 19th century map. On my right is the Salvation Army Citadel, its previous location being on Hillgate in Stockport. Continuing my journey along Stockport Road, I come to St Augustine's Road, and at the top of here there's an old derelict church. The church was consecrated in 1893, but in 2006 it was closed for services. I've now returned to Stockport Road to continue my journey, and on my right is St John's Methodist Church. I'm now at the top of Gorsebank Road, and this takes you down to the River Mersey, and there was a mill, a cotton mill, down at the bottom. After that it was a housing estate. On my right is the former Beau Garrett public house. There was an earlier pub on this site called the Bulkley Arms, but the current building here dates from about the 1890s. I always wondered what the name Beau Garrett stood for. Was it a person? But no, it's a term relating to the hatting industry. It was the name of a room for the bowing of material used in the process of hat making. The site under development on my right is the site of the former Springmount Cotton Mill, or Walthews Mill. It was taken over in the 1870s by a couple of brothers called John and George Walthew, and these two brothers just came from ordinary working class backgrounds. The lane running up the side of the old mill would have took me to Brinksway Chapel, which ironically was known as Beefsteak Chapel, as it was set up by a group of vegetarians. I'm now passing some blocked off entrances to tunnels which were used as air raid shelters in the Second World War. The tunnels ran for about 800 metres into the rock and were about 7 feet wide and 7 feet high. As you come to the end of the retaining wall, you'll find there's a set of derelict steps which take you up to the top, and this would have once took you up to Spring Mount House, which has since been demolished. This steep slope to my right is Lark Hill, locally known as Spion Cop. To the right of Lark Hill once stood a pub called the Traveller's Call, and to the left, Brinksway Pictorium. An old photograph of the Brinksway Pictorium features on the cover of the booklet I'm using today as a guide. Where the car dealership is was Brinksway Sunday School. The building ahead is the former Woolpack Inn, yet another pub being converted into housing. There's been a Woolpack Inn on this site from about 1820, but there was probably a pub here by 1780 when Brinksway Bridge was built. Well, I'm standing on Brinksway Bridge looking down the River Mersey, but we're going to continue down Chestergate towards Stockport. Once Chestergate would have been lined with tourist houses, and 3 of its residents were injured in the Peterloo massacre in 1819. The buildings to my right were once the home of a company called Roberts Arundel. In 1967 there was an infamous industrial dispute at these premises. It resulted in the entire workforce being dismissed. To my left is the former Kingston Mill, and shortly we'll be passing 3 houses dating from the early 19th century that have escaped demolition. 213 Chestergate is a Grade 2 listed building, and the building next door was once used as a synagogue. The synagogue closed in 1965 with the congregation moving to Gatley. 209 Chestergate had been used as a public house, the Bridgewater Arms, and trams would run all along Chestergate as far as the Horse and Farrier in Gatley. Ahead is the Stockport Viaduct, which crosses the Mersey Valley. Opened in 1840, it only took 21 months to build and was the largest viaduct at the time in the world. I've just taken a slight detour off Chestergate now to look at Weir Mill, which runs underneath the viaduct. This mill is Grade 2 listed. It was one of the first fireproof mills, using cast iron columns and brick vaults filled with sand. Yet another pub that's seen better days, the Crown Inn. This pub was once known for its good selection of beers and real ale. Well, I've returned to Chestergate and I'm back round the other side of the mill, and we're going to head under the viaduct towards the bus station. Well, I'm almost at Waterloo Road now, and at the end of my walk, just a couple of other things to see. The large mill opposite me is Wellington Mill, built in 1828. But just before we go under Wellington Road, there's a memorial to Howard Beckwith, one-time superintendent of Stockport Fire Brigade. The final point of interest on my walk today is the Plaza, an Art Deco building dating from 1932. Well, that concludes my walk today, but if you want more detailed information, then the booklet I've used is available online from the Stockport Heritage Trust website.